The phone rang at 3 in the morning. Nobody calls with good news at 3 in the morning. Sarah? Oh God, Sarah. She's gone. My Aunt Rebecca's voice cracked through the speaker, raw with what sounded like genuine grief. Grandma Rose. She had another stroke. We're at the hospital now, but... The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Grandma Rose. The woman who raised me when my parents couldn't. The woman who taught me that family meant everything, even when everything else fell apart. I was already reaching for my clothes before Rebecca finished speaking. Which hospital? I'm coming right now. Memorial General. But Sarah, honey, you don't need to rush. She's already gone. The doctors said it was peaceful. She just slipped away in her sleep.
Gone.
Just like that. The woman who had survived the Depression, 2 wars, and the loss of her husband was just
gone.
I drove through empty streets, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The city looked different at this hour. Hollow. Like it was morning too. Memorial General's emergency room buzzed with the kind of controlled chaos that hospitals never escaped. I found Rebecca in the family waiting area, her face streaked with tears, clutching a tissue like it was the only thing keeping her together. Oh, Sarah, she pulled me into a hug that felt desperate. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. I know how much she meant to you. She meant everything to me, but I couldn't say the words. They would have broken me completely. Can I see her? Rebecca's grip tightened. They've already taken her to the morgue. The paperwork, the arrangements. I've been handling everything. I know it's a lot, but someone had to. Of course. Rebecca, always the practical one. Always the one who stepped up when things needed handling. I should have been grateful. What about the funeral arrangements? Already started. I called Morrison's funeral home. They're expecting us tomorrow to finalize everything. I hope that's okay. I thought you'd want to focus on grieving, not logistics. The next 3 days passed in a blur of caskets and flowers and condolences from people I barely remembered. Rebecca handled everything with the efficiency of someone who had done this before. She knew which flowers Grandma Rose would have wanted, which hymns, which readings. She even had copies of the will ready for the lawyer. That should have been my first warning. Sarah, I know this is difficult timing, but we need to discuss Rose's estate. Mr. Chin, the family lawyer, spread papers across his mahogany desk like he was dealing cards. Your grandmother's will is quite straightforward. The house, the savings, the investments. It's all been left to Rebecca. The words didn't process immediately. They hung in the air like smoke, visible but not quite real. I'm sorry, what? Your aunt is the primary beneficiary. There's a small provision for you, of course. $5,000 and some personal items. But the bulk of the estate goes to Rebecca. The room tilted. Grandma Rose had promised me that house. We talked about it dozens of times. She'd shown me where she kept the spare key, told me which room would be perfect for my future children. She'd made me promise to keep her garden alive, to maintain the rose bushes she'd planted when she first married Grandpa. That can't be right. She always told me. Wills can be updated, Sarah. Rebecca's voice was gentle, understanding. People change their minds as they get older. Maybe she felt I was better positioned to maintain the property. You know how much that house meant to her. I did know. That's why this felt like a betrayal that cut straight to my bones. When was the will updated? Mr. Chin consulted his files. 6 months ago. Your grandmother came in with Rebecca and made the changes. She was quite clear about her wishes. 6 months ago. Right around the time Rebecca started visiting more frequently. Right around the time she convinced Grandma Rose to let her handle more of the finances. I signed where they told me to sign. I smiled when they offered their condolences. I even hugged Rebecca goodbye and thanked her for handling everything so smoothly. But something cold and sharp was growing in my chest. Something that wouldn't let me sleep. The funeral was beautiful. Rebecca had chosen everything perfectly. The flowers, the music, the reading from Corinthians about love never failing. Dozens of people came to pay their respects. They all told me how sorry they were for my loss, how much Grandma Rose had loved me, how she talked about me constantly. She was so proud of you, dear. Mrs. Patterson from next door squeezed my hand. Just last week, she was showing me pictures of your new apartment, talking about how successful you'd become. Last week. But according to the death certificate, Grandma Rose had died 4 days ago. The cold, sharp thing in my chest twisted. After the service, I lingered at the gravesite while the crowd dispersed. Rebecca approached as they were lowering the casket. I know this is hard, Sarah, but I want you to know that I'll take good care of the house. I'll maintain her garden, keep everything just the way she liked it. I'm sure you will. And if you ever want to visit, to see her things, you just let me know. The door is always open. But it wasn't her door to open. Not yet. I drove home in silence, but instead of going to my apartment, I found myself parked outside Grandma Rose's house. Rebecca's car was already in the driveway. Through the windows, I could see lights moving around inside. She was settling in fast. Too fast. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Memorial General. I needed to see the records myself. I needed proof of what had happened, something concrete to either confirm my suspicions or put them to rest. I'm sorry, but we don't have any record of a Rose Mackenzie being admitted here in the past week. The admissions clerk checked her computer twice. Are you sure it was Memorial General? My blood froze. She was brought in 3 nights ago. Stroke victim. My Aunt Rebecca called me from here. I can check our morgue records, but... No, nothing under that name. Are you certain about the hospital? I tried 2 other hospitals. Then 3 more. Nobody had any record of Rose Mackenzie dying of a stroke. Nobody had any record of Rose Mackenzie at all. The cold, sharp thing in my chest exploded into rage. I drove straight to the house. Rebecca's car was still there, but now there was a moving truck in the driveway. 2 men were carrying boxes out of the house, loading them methodically into the truck. Excuse me. I approached the movers. What's happening here? Storage unit rental, ma'am. Lady inside hired us to clear out some stuff before she moves in properly. Storage unit. She was already disposing of Grandma Rose's things. Things that should have been mine to sort through, to keep or donate as I saw fit. I marched to the front door and rang the bell. When Rebecca answered, her face cycled through surprise, guilt, and something else. Something calculating. Sarah, I wasn't expecting you. I was just... Well, there's so much stuff in here, and I thought it would be better to put some of it in storage rather than throw it away. You know how your grandmother was about keeping things. Where is she, Rebecca? Where is who? Don't play dumb with me. I checked every hospital in the city. Nobody has any record of Rose Mackenzie dying. Nobody has any record of her being admitted anywhere. Rebecca's mask slipped for just a moment. I saw something cold and predatory flash across her face before the concern and expression slammed back into place. Sarah, honey, you're obviously distraught. Grief can make us confused, paranoid even. Maybe you should talk to someone.
Where is she?
She's dead, Sarah. I know it's hard to accept, but... Then show me the death certificate. Show me the medical records. Show me one piece of paper that proves Rose Mackenzie died 4 days ago. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. I think you should leave, Rebecca said finally. You're clearly not thinking straight, and I don't think. This is still her house. You don't own it yet. Actually, I do. The will was probated yesterday. Everything's been transferred. So technically, you're trespassing. The rage threatened to consume me completely. But underneath it, something else was growing. Something focused and relentless. We'll see about that. I spent the next week becoming an expert in fraud investigation. I learned about elder abuse, about coercion, about what constituted valid documentation for estate transfers. I learned that wills could be contested if there was evidence of undue influence or incapacity. Most importantly, I learned that death certificates were public records. There was no death certificate for Rose Mackenzie. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Webb, and he specialized in missing persons cases. He was expensive, but some things were worth every penny. I need you to find my grandmother. My family claims she's dead, but I don't believe them. Marcus was a thin man with sharp eyes and careful hands. He studied the photos I brought him, the documents Rebecca had shown me, the timeline of events. When did you last speak to your grandmother directly? I had to think. About 2 weeks ago. She called to tell me about her doctor's appointment. Said everything was fine. She was feeling good. And, before that, we talked every few days. We had lunch together the Sunday before she died. She seemed perfectly healthy. Marcus nodded. I'll start with the obvious places. Hospitals, nursing homes, assisted living facilities. If someone wanted to hide an elderly person, those would be the logical options. The waiting was torture. Every day that passed meant Rebecca was settling deeper into the house, disposing of more of Grandma Rose's belongings, cementing her theft. But I used the time productively. I researched Rebecca's finances and discovered she was drowning in debt. Credit cards, medical bills from her own health issues, a mortgage that was 3 months behind. She needed money desperately enough to commit fraud. Marcus called me on a Thursday afternoon. I found her, Sarah. But you're not going to like where she is. Sunset Manor Assisted Living Facility was 45 minutes outside the city. A clean, modern building surrounded by well-maintained gardens. Expensive. The kind of place that costs thousands of dollars per month. Mrs. Mackenzie was admitted 8 days ago, the administrator explained as she led me through sterile hallways. Her daughter Rebecca felt she needed more intensive care after her recent health scare. Health scare. Not death. Health scare. What kind of health scare? A minor episode. Some confusion. A brief fainting spell. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to warrant closer supervision. We stopped outside room 237. Through the window, I could see a figure in a wheelchair, staring out at the gardens. Gray hair perfectly styled, wearing the blue cardigan I'd given her for Christmas.
Alive.
Completely, utterly alive. Grandma Rose? She turned at my voice, and her face lit up with pure joy. Sarah? Oh, sweetheart. What are you doing here? Rebecca said you were too busy with work to visit. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. Rebecca had isolated her here, told her I was too busy to see her, probably intercepted my calls. Meanwhile, she'd staged an elaborate death, complete with fake funeral, forged documents, and fraudulent will probate. Grandma, we need to talk. I spent 2 hours with her, gently explaining what had happened. She listened with growing horror and anger. She told me you didn't want to be bothered with an old woman. She said you'd moved on, started your own life, didn't have time for family obligations. That's not true. It was never true. I know that now. Her voice hardened in a way I'd never heard before. That girl always was too clever for her own good. I should have seen this coming. We're going to fix this, Grandma. All of it. What she did. It's not just theft, is it? What do you call it when someone fakes a death? I thought about all the research I'd done, all the legal terms I'd memorized.
Fraud.
Elder abuse. Theft by deception. Probably a dozen other charges. Her eyes glittered with something that reminded me why she'd survived 92 years of everything the world could throw at her.
Good.
Then let's make sure she pays for every single 1 inch. Getting Grandma Rose out of Sunset Manor required lawyers, but getting her declared legally alive again required a different kind of expertise. Fortunately, elder law attorneys existed for exactly these situations. Sarah Brennan, Esquire, was a woman who specialized in financial elder abuse. She was sharp, thorough, and absolutely furious when I explained what had happened. This is one of the most elaborate schemes I've encountered, she said as she reviewed the evidence. Faking a death, forging a will, isolating the victim. Your aunt could be looking at serious federal charges. What about the house? The assets she's already transferred. Everything can be reversed. The will is obviously fraudulent, and any transactions based on a fraudulent death certificate are void. But we need to move fast. Every day she has access to those accounts is another day she can drain them. We filed an emergency injunction that afternoon. By 5 o'clock, Rebecca's access to Grandma Rose's accounts was frozen. By 6 o'clock, a court order was issued preventing any further disposal of estate assets. I wanted to be there when they serve her with the papers. Rebecca answered her door, wearing one of Grandma Rose's dresses. The sight of it made my vision go red. "Sarah? What are you doing here? I thought we agreed." "We didn't agree to anything." I stepped aside so the process server could do his job. "Rebecca Mackenzie? You're being served with a temporary restraining order and an emergency injunction regarding the estate of Rose Mackenzie." The blood drained from her face as she read the papers. "This is ridiculous."
Rose is dead.
"I have the death certificate." "No, you don't." I kept my voice level, professional. "You have a forgery. A very good one, but still a forgery. The real Rose Mackenzie is very much alive and very eager to press charges." "That's impossible. I was there when she..." "When she what, Rebecca?" "When she died. Because according to every hospital in the city, that never happened." The mask finally slipped completely. The grieving, concerned aunt disappeared, replaced by something cold and desperate.
You don't understand.
I needed that money. I'm losing everything. The house, my car, my credit. I'm 58 years old, Sarah. What am I supposed to do? Start over from nothing? You were supposed to ask for help, like family does. She would have said no. She always said no when I asked for money. Said I needed to learn to manage my finances better, be more responsible. Easy for her to say, sitting on all that wealth. So, you decided to just take it. I decided to secure my future. She's 92 years old, Sarah. How much longer was she going to live anyway? A year? 2? I was just accelerating the timeline. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. She trusted you. She was naive. She lived in that house by herself, barely able to take care of herself. It was only a matter of time before something happened. I was being proactive. You were committing fraud. The process server cleared his throat. Ma'am, you need to understand that this injunction is effective immediately. You cannot dispose of any assets from the Rose Mackenzie estate. That includes personal property currently in your possession or in storage. Storage. The storage unit where she'd been hiding Grandma Rose's belongings. I want the address of the storage facility, I said. And the access codes. You can't just. Rebecca, you're going to cooperate with this investigation, or you're going to jail. Those are your options. She stared at me for a long moment, and I realized she was seeing me clearly for the first time. Not as the grateful niece who'd stay quiet to keep the peace. Not as the grieving granddaughter who'd accept whatever scraps she was given. As someone who would fight for what was right. Unit 247 at Secure Space on Morrison Boulevard, she said finally. The code is 8834. Thank you. Oh, and Rebecca? You're wearing her dress. Take it off. The storage unit was bigger than I'd expected. Rebecca had been thorough in her theft. Furniture, photo albums, jewelry, books, kitchen items. Entire rooms worth of belongings stacked in careful rows. But it was what I found in the back corner that made me understand the full scope of her betrayal. A filing cabinet, locked but not secure enough to keep out a determined granddaughter with a crowbar. Inside were documents spanning decades. Insurance policies, investment statements, property deeds, and correspondence with financial advisors. Grandma Rose was worth almost $2 million. Rebecca hadn't just been stealing a house and some savings. She'd been stealing an entire fortune. Money that could have secured her own future legitimately if she'd simply been patient and honest. But there was something else in those files. Something that made my blood run cold. Medical records. Recent ones, from just 2 months ago. Records showing that Grandma Rose had early-stage dementia. Nothing severe, just some memory issues and occasional confusion. But enough to potentially question her capacity to make major financial decisions. Rebecca had known. She'd known about the diagnosis and used it as part of her scheme. Grandma Rose's occasional confusion hadn't been happening naturally. Looking at the medication records, I realized Rebecca had been deliberately increasing her anti-anxiety medications, making her more compliant and confused. This wasn't just theft. It was systematic abuse. I photographed everything, every document, every record, every piece of evidence that proved Rebecca's calculated betrayal of the woman who'd raised her. Then I called the district attorney's office. The arrest warrant was issued the next morning. I wasn't there when they took Rebecca into custody, but Marcus Webb was. He sent me photos. Rebecca, handcuffed in her driveway, looking small and defeated in the harsh morning light. The neighbors watching from their windows, whispers spreading through the community like wildfire. The woman who'd orchestrated an elaborate fraud to steal an entire estate, reduced to a common criminal in Orange County jail scrubs. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like loss. Loss of the family I thought I'd had. Loss of the trust that had held us together. Loss of the innocence that let me believe family meant something sacred. But some losses were worth it to protect what mattered most. I moved back into Grandma Rose's house 2 days later. She wanted to come home immediately, but the doctors at Sunset Manor recommended a gradual transition. The medication adjustments Rebecca had been making needed to be reversed carefully, and Grandma Rose needed time to regain her full strength. "I'm not as sharp as I used to be," she admitted during one of my visits. "Some days I get confused about things. I worry that Rebecca was right, that I can't take care of myself anymore." "That confusion was artificial, Grandma. She was drugging you to make you more compliant. The doctors say it should clear up completely once your system is clean." How could she do that? How could my own niece? How could family do that to family? It was a question I'd been asking myself for weeks. I don't know. But what matters is that she's not going to hurt you anymore. What's going to happen to her? She's facing multiple felony charges: elder abuse, fraud, theft, forgery. The prosecutor says she could get 15 to 20 years. Grandma Rose was quiet for a long time. I feel sorry for her. Sorry for her? After everything she did? She threw away her family for money, Sarah. She destroyed the only people who might have helped her, who might have loved her through her troubles. What could be more tragic than that? I wanted to argue, to insist that Rebecca deserved no sympathy. But looking at my grandmother, still finding compassion for the person who'd betrayed her so completely, I understood why she'd lived 92 years surrounded by people who loved her. Some people built their lives on trust and generosity. Others built them on schemes and selfishness. Only one approach created something worth preserving. The trial took place 6 months later. Rebecca had initially tried to fight the charges, claiming she'd been acting in Grandma Rose's best interests, that the dementia diagnosis proved she was unfit to manage her own affairs. But the medical evidence was overwhelming. The deliberate medication tampering, the forged documents, the elaborate deception. It painted a picture of premeditated fraud that no jury could ignore. On the day of sentencing, I sat in the courtroom gallery next to Grandma Rose. She'd insisted on being there, despite my concerns about the stress. "I need to see this through," she'd said. "I need to close this chapter properly." Rebecca looked older than her 58 years. The months in jail had been hard on her. When she stood to address the court, her voice was barely audible. "I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt my family, betrayed their trust. I was desperate, scared of being poor, scared of losing everything. But that's no excuse. I'm sorry for the pain I caused." The judge was unmoved. "Mrs. Mackenzie, you didn't just steal money. You terrorized an elderly woman, convinced her family she was dead, and systematically abused someone who trusted you completely. This court sentences you to 18 years in state prison, with possibility of parole in 12 years. 18 years. Rebecca would be 76 when she got out if she lived that long. As the bailiff led her away, she looked back at us one last time. I saw regret there, and shame, but also something harder. Something that looked like resentment, as if we were somehow responsible for her choices. Some people never learned. We drove home in comfortable silence, Grandma Rose's hand warm in mine. The house looked exactly as it always had, as if the chaos of the past year had been just a bad dream.
But some things had changed.
The locks were different now, stronger. There was a security system, cameras, precautions against future betrayals. Trust was precious, but it wasn't unlimited. Do you regret it? Grandma Rose asked as we sat in her garden, watching the roses bloom in the afternoon sun. Fighting so hard for all this? It would have been easier to just let her have it, move on with your life. I didn't fight for the money, Grandma. I fought for you. But it cost us so much. Our family, our peace of mind. It cost us Rebecca. But Rebecca stopped being family the moment she decided to betray you. Real family doesn't abandon each other when things get difficult.
She squeezed my hand.
Real family fights for each other. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. We sat in comfortable quiet, 2 generations of women who'd learned that love wasn't just a feeling. It was a choice, made new every day. A commitment to stand by each other when the world turned dark. Some people thought family was about blood, about obligation, about what you owed each other. But the truest families were built on something stronger than biology. They were built on choice, on loyalty that survived testing, on love that endured even betrayal. Rebecca had chosen money over family. We had chosen each other over everything else. In the end, that made all the difference. The roses bloomed that summer like they never had before, as if they were celebrating our survival. Grandma Rose tended them with steady hands and a clear mind, her medication-induced confusion fading like a bad dream. She lived 4 more years in that house, surrounded by the things she loved, protected by the granddaughter who'd fought to bring her home. When she finally passed, it was peacefully, in her own bed, holding my hand and surrounded by photos of everyone who'd ever loved her. She left me everything, but more importantly, she left me the knowledge that fighting for what's right is never a waste of time. Even when it costs you everything you thought you knew about family. Especially then.